Alderman Yonda.
Yes, good. I turn this on again. I want some clarity. I thought T4, we could always have restaurants in T4. If we could have Mr. Ross come forward and talk about Cordova Road, and in reality, the only thing we're talking about is restaurants. We can't have liquor stores there. I think everybody's pretty aware that most restaurants in our community have tons of kids in it, along with a bar. But I would like to know some clarity on how the width of the road has to be. There won't be anything on Cordova Road, I hope. And this is good. I mean, I realize that Mr. Harris is a lawyer, and it is confusing to a certain extent, but the basic thing is we're trying to correct a 200-foot residential zone to rezone liquor stores specifically. And then we're trying to make sure that retail food stores that are permitted to sell wine in the city at retail locations are included in all these different zones, including the T4, which is what they're concerned about. Is that correct?
Go ahead, Mr. Ross.
To the Alderman, with regard to the permitted uses within the T4 district, 23763, the permitted use table, is what I just passed out to each of you. And 23763A4 addresses retail uses, of which a retail building is included, as well as a restaurant, and then a retail liquor selling establishment. If you turn the page to C, and you look at the column titled T4, and then consider 4, the row 4, and retail. Limited retail is discussed as it applies in T4. Limited retail limits the building area for retail use to the first story of buildings at corner locations with at least one major street as defined in 1756C. 1756C defines a major street as 80 to 160 feet wide. These streets are used primarily for fast or heavy traffic. It goes further to say that not more than 5,000 square feet per block along the major street. A block is defined in 1757 blocks as a length of not more than 1,500 feet. Those blocks along the major street where storefront, shop fronts are recommended or required on the regulating plan. And then B, within limited retail, is that the specific use shall further be limited to neighborhood stores or restaurants seating no more than 100. So if you consider those guidelines of streets and blocks in a major street, Cordova Road, and the location of any retail establishment, be it a retail liquor selling establishment, a restaurant, or a retail food store, and think about it in the terms of a major street, Germantown Road is the only location in which a shop front would be indicated as an allowed use by the T4 zoning district limited retail use regulations.
But previous to this, T4 still allowed restaurants. Is that
correct? I am reading to you the language as it exists today, as it's existed since this was adopted, as it's existed since it was amended in 2015.
Are you answering his question?
Yes.
Can you answer with a yes or no?
Hold on one moment, Alderman Massey. Alderman Yonda, you have the floor. Is that satisfy your?
That takes care of it. Thank you.
Thank you. You yield the floor, Alderman Massey.
So I understood that you read back the language, but I think Alderman Yonda's question. Clerk, could you repeat the question exactly as he read it? Do you have the ability to do that? Alderman Yonda, do you remember your question exactly as you said it?
What we're doing right now doesn't affect what T4 was all along, correct? So we're not, what it's basically doing is making a correction with our 200-foot rule. But it wouldn't affect what we've had in T4 all these years. Well, 3 years, 2 years, whatever it's been.
To the aldermans, both aldermen, at this point, a restaurant is allowed by right. A retail building, which could include a retail food store, is allowed by right. A liquor selling establishment functioning in its retail capacity is not allowed in T4 and is only allowed by warrant in T5 and T6.
Okay, thank you.
Have liquor selling establishments, or including restaurants, always been allowed in T4?
The drafters of the code specifically parsed out restaurants as a separate use from a retail liquor selling establishment. So by virtue of what was drafted in the original code, one can assume that restaurants are judged on their own merits separate from a retail liquor selling establishment. And further, as indicated by 116 and 114, it's at the board's discretion on the location of any operation of an alcoholic beverage or beer selling establishment,
You yield
of
the floor.
which restaurants are included.